Hello and welcome to IGPP's panel discussion on AI and children, education, critical thinking, and the future. As we stand at the crossroads of education and technology, the integration of AI into education and critical thinking curricula offers both a golden opportunity and a double-edged sword. AI has the potential to revolutionize learning by personalizing education, automating routine tasks, and providing real-time feedback. However, challenges exist such as data privacy, algorithm bias, and the risk of over-reliance on technology. These challenges force us to think about the benefits and risk of AI in education and learning process. The key lies in striking a delicate balance, harnessing AI's power while ensuring the human judgment and creativity remain at the heart of education. Discussing in this background, today we have two guests with us, both prominently working around technology and education. Professor Vageshwari from Faculty of Law, Delhi University, Dr. Arun Kumar Tangirala, who's a professor with the Department of Chemical Engineering at the IIT Tirupati. Professor Vageshwari is an academician, activist, author with several textbooks and articles in leading law journals and newspapers. She is a visiting faculty at various judicial academies and administrative training institutes. And she also routinely associates with NGOs for work in areas involving gender, equity, diversity, inclusion, and animal welfare. Welcome, Professor Vageshwari. Dr. Arun Kumar, thank you, ma'am. Dr. Arun Kumar is a professor in the Department of Chemical Technology, IIT Tirupati, and he was formerly with the Department of Data Science and AI and the Department of Chemical Engineering. His research interests span the fields of process systems engineering, data science and AI, data-driven uncertainty models, and complex networks. Welcome, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, both of you, for giving your time for the conversation. I would straight away want to come to the GenAI thing. The GenAI, which is kind of the latest in the long line of technologies that have raised concern about their impact on human thought. A lineage that includes writing criticized by Socrates, printing criticized by Tithonus, calculators criticized by arithmetic teachers, and the internet. Do you see AI's role in education and human cognition as transformative, or is it simply another technology facing temporary criticism, much like predecessors? Dr. Arun, can we begin with you?
Yeah, absolutely. At the outset, many thanks for making me a part of this very interesting panel discussion, and a very timely one indeed. So to answer your question, certainly Gen AI or any of these AI forms that you see will have an impact on the way we think and we operate and we behave and we act. It's pervading almost every aspect of our lives. I believe the core concern in this question is that whether this impact is going to be beneficial or it's going to be harmful in the long run. And of course, comparison is being made to the introduction of calculators and so on. I agree that calculators did impact the way we mentally calculate things, our ability and so on. And so did computers. And in fact, so have smartphones on our ability to communicate and so on. So every technology, a big one, will have a paradigm shift. Whether this technology in itself doesn't have a nature, I would say, a character of it. How we use it defines its character. I think that is extremely important to note. Even this is true even for a knife. A knife in itself doesn't have a character, right? Depends on who uses the knife and what purpose for which the knife is used makes the knife, gives some character to it. Likewise, when it comes to AI, yes, it is going to impact our ability to maybe code, the ability to calculate, ability to do things and so on, but only if we choose to. And there is a choice there. That's very important. The question is, who will make the choice? Well, it's a mixed thing. In many applications, maybe there is no choice. But in many other situations, there is a choice. For example, if you take education, there are certain aspects in which we may have to go with the flow. So the institute has to go with the flow, or the course has to go with the flow of things happening in the society, happening in the market. So you will have to teach how GenAI works, how to use it, and so on. But there is a provision in every course, in every program, to say that we will try to keep certain skills intact if we choose to. Okay. So the bottom line is, have we defined our outcomes very clearly? Earlier, I didn't have to define these outcomes very clearly. For example, I didn't have to say that you will have to develop this for sure. There was no need to explicitly mention that. But with the arrival of AI, there is a need to mention that explicitly. And if I don't, then perhaps I will take the path of least resistance and use AI. So the onus has now been shifted to the teacher and to the learner, and perhaps to the institute, to define those outcomes and understand how much of AI should be used, whether AI should be used at all. I have said in many of my previous discussions and interviews with at other forums as well, that as an example, if I take coding, programming, for example, I can choose depending on the audience. So suppose somebody is beginner to programming, I will not use AI. I will first teach the essentials of programming, the concept of programming. It is not that programming as a skill is a marketable or an employable skill. Today, if you read the Future of Jobs 2025 report by World Economic Forum, the programming skill is somewhere even below 10th. Okay. But the whole purpose of teaching programming there is, if I use an AI tool that generates codes, I should know whether it is the best program that it is giving me, it is the most efficient, is it going to give me the correct result, is it doing what I want, and also, very importantly, to know how to make it do what I want. Okay. So that is what is the defining factor. So there is no definitive answer here, but yes, it is going to impact. But nature is like that. I mean, skill sets will keep changing with centuries, decades, and so on.
They do.
And we don't have to be really absolutely worried about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Professor Vageshwari, Dr. Arun talked about the context and what is the accessibility and efficiency of the tools. That is one thing, but in what context it is used. So do you believe like AI is fundamentally transforming education, and are there specific areas where AI has the potential to redefine traditional learning methodologies?
So thank you very much for this question. See, to begin with, I would like to say that in life, change is the only constant. See, our parents, they wrote on taktis, these small wooden plates with reed pens that would soak up a substantial amount of ink. I mean, we used notebooks, pens, first ink pens, then ball pens, where ink didn't spill. See, our teachers used blackboards, then whiteboards, and now they have upgraded to smart boards, smart classrooms. Instead of notebooks, students have graduated to laptops, iPads. But can we say that the current generation knows less than their predecessors? Or they are less smarter? No, they are way smarter. They are ahead of us. They have grown up along with the technological advancements, and they are completely at ease with it. Unlike the previous generation who find it difficult to adjust with the fast pace of development. Tell me, have smartphones made life easier for us or tougher? I admit there are associated risks, but upgradation and evolution is a continuous process, and that should not stop, neither of technology nor of humans. The biggest flaw in our traditional education system is the universal approach which we apply across the board without caring for the differential learning needs of our children. So if we are serious about adapting an equitable, diverse, and inclusive approaches in education, and if we are committed to ensuring that no child is to be left behind, AI will come handy. We can use artificial intelligence for more specific, personalized, and tailor made approaches that would be more adaptable to learners depending on their cognitive abilities, tapping on their strengths, focusing on their weaknesses, something which is more suited to their learning capabilities. See, we need to destigmatize those students, those children who are differently abled or slow learners. And at the same time, we should help those who are fast learners to learn faster, invent, innovate, and think better for this world. See, it cannot be denied that artificial intelligence cannot replace human touch, sensitivity, sensibility, and emotional support that teachers can provide. So while AI can augment our teaching learning, what we need to do is mindfully integrate it into our education. See, AI has more potential than the technology which we earlier had. Like, see, earlier we had the internet. Okay, so AI has more potential than internet, but then so do we humans because we are the creators of AI. When calculators were invented, people were extremely critical of integrating them in education. We were skeptical that our coming generations would lose the ability to calculate. But did that happen? Or did we evolve to even greater levels of computing? When computers came, people were scared that millions would lose their jobs. But did that happen? We evolved new kinds of employment opportunities. So we need to keep on evolving. See, science, as we used to say in the childhood, we were made to write essays on that. Science is a good servant but a bad master. And the same holds true even now. So AI, to the best of my capacity, what I understand, it is indeed a transformative technology that is facing scrutiny. Why? Because we are gearing up to deal with the associated challenges, and the human spirit, human resilience, we will eventually triumph. We will.
Uh, mm, uh, I'm really like, what you are saying, it's so optimistic. And in your writings also, you had been so optimistic, so Vageshwari. I would come to you, but before that, Dr. Arun, what Dr. Vageshwari said, that we are the creators. We are the creators. The critical thinking and the critical faculty of human beings, and how, whether it gets affected or not, that's a big question people are actually dealing with right now. And they are so skeptical about, particularly when children are increasingly relying on platforms and AI and everything. The creativity, the social development, the critical thinking seems to be at danger. What's your take on that?
Yeah, so I completely agree that AI, unlike many other technologies, has the potential to take away a lot of the critical thinking skills if it is not designed or integrated in a way it should be, right? But then somewhere along the line, nature will come back and say these skills are required and you will have to make changes to stay on top. See, it is always human nature to stay on top. There is no doubt about it. One technology can potentially disrupt a stream or a group of human beings. It could be in thousands, millions, and so on. But there will be other humans who will figure a way out to stay on the top. But the question that we want to ask is, should we design interventions so that that process is not going to be a long drawn run? Nature is in itself self-regulatory. But with interventions, we can minimize that period, the transition period, where there is a lot of fear, confusion, and so on, and make sure that AI is integrated in as seamless fashion as possible. And again, that demands a redesign of what we are doing. That is what is important. I tell my colleagues, I tell my junior teachers, everyone, that the content that you want to deliver is the same, or maybe there are some changes. but the way you deliver and your program outcomes may have to be redefined and clearly stated. So if you think critical thinking is at stake and is a very required skill, then you define that upfront and you integrate in your course plan in such a way that despite the use of AI, the critical thinking is not at stake. In other words, now I have to consciously make an effort to make sure that the impact is minimalistic. But the scope to stay on top is very high. Like, like my colleague here has just said clearly, if calculators had the ability to take away our thinking skill, how did we actually come up with computer, which is a more advanced technology? If computers had the ability to take away our critical thinking skill, then how did we come up with internet and AI and smartphones, right? So it is not that they're going to take away, but there's going to be a displacement of jobs. There is going to be a displacement of skills and evolution of new skills. Now, the skill set that will be required is how to make sure that I stay on top of AI. And how do we design interventions to do that? That has to be done at an institute level, individual level, parental level. Even now, parents have to certainly put in more effort to ensure that the child is not addicted to this fantastic technology of GenAI. That the child is given enough training, even attention. In fact, I'm saying, parents, please spend non-electronic time with your children to know, to make sure their social skills are intact. Forget critical thinking to aur ek baat hai, that is okay. But first requirement is social skills, because mobiles have globally connected us, locally disconnected us. That is the problem. So AI also has that ability that it can actually take you deep into the treasure that is there, but it has its biases, it has its fears and so on. So we have to educate the next generations that there is this potential benefit, but these skills are also important, and design programs to make sure that the critical thinking abilities are still intact. Because today, as I said, the future of jobs report says top thinking that is required is cognitive thinking, creative thinking, troubleshooting, apart from your AI data skills.
Yes.
So that will ensure that we will design interventions. But I agree, and that AI has the potential to disrupt, and therefore interventions have to be designed. I just want to conclude with this particular response with one point. Unlike calculators, unlike computers, unlike any other paradigm shift that we have seen, AI is different because there is one more aspect, which is privacy. Calculators never told even my neighbor or my friend or my parents what I'm calculating. It was only helping me. But AI is this tool, or you can say it is this maid for you, who will go to every house and tell what you are doing in the house. Okay.
That's true. That's true.
So that privacy concern remains, and that to me is a very, very important aspect that needs to be known by consumers of AI.
That's true. Thank you, sir. Professor Vageshwari, what Dr. Arun has just told about the interventions and other requirements which are there, your writings already, as I mentioned, that they suggest a strong optimism towards AI in education. Can you share some evidences or trends, particularly which reinforce your confidence in AI's ability to enhance learning?
Your observation is apt. I actually am very positive about integrating artificial intelligence into education. See, being a professor of law in Delhi University's law faculty, Delhi University's law faculty is the largest faculty of our country, and we have a strength of 10,000 students in a single faculty. So this gives me the privilege of closely interacting with a large number of students. And because ours is a government university, a central university with a minimal fees, but an extremely tough entrance exam. So we get lots of students, and that too from diverse backgrounds. I have keenly observed that rapid pace at which teaching and learning has changed in the last 2 to 3 years. Now students use ChatGPT for the simplest of tasks, such as even if they have to draft a leave application. And needless to say, the quality of drafting has improved considerably. See, in today's competitive world, where every task needs to be expeditiously concluded, and that too without compromising on the quality of precision, banning AI is no solution. I strongly believe that change needs to be embraced, but with adequate safeguards in place to prevent any misuse of technology. Okay. There is a possibility that with ready answers available, students might not like to interact and engage with fellow learners to look for solutions. In the absence of challenge, there will be no mental stimulation, and mental stimulation is that what leads to critical thinking. So what we need to do is design the programs in a manner that while offering some answers, it raises some new questions so that new ideas, new possibilities might germinate in our minds so that innovation doesn't stop. Creativity, critical thought, these are non-negotiable. Artificial intelligence cannot increase or decrease human creativity. That is integral to humans' thought processes, and that is something which stems from our experiences. We humans have designed AI. Ideas have to eventually come from us. The only concern that I have for next generation is the lack of outdoor activity, the minimized social interactions. See, earlier there was internet, now there is metaverse. Online interactions can never be the substitute for real thing. This is where the state and policy makers, they need to step in and they need to regulate technology. AI tools, they can process your data. They can utilize it for what you want, and sometimes even for purposes beyond your command or contemplation. In contemporary tech-driven environment, artificial intelligence can be leveraged to promote experiential learning among students of all disciplines. And in my discipline, which is law, law is no exception here. Artificial intelligence, it provides law students with access to vast data resources, and it has made research very easy. See, simulated classrooms, tech-enabled virtual client counseling sessions, mock sessions with artificial intelligence chatbots. Now, all these can be used to equip our students to deal with real courtroom proceedings, and that too in a very good manner. However, the responsibility of teachers is there. We need to emphasize on the fact that artificial intelligence, it cannot contextualize data. It can collect the data, but it cannot contextualize, nor can it think critically or assess human reactions. See, the skill of reading between the lines, understanding the unstated, assessing the physiognomy of the opposing counsel. Now, these are skills that are extremely pertinent for a good lawyer. Artificial intelligence cannot replace human reasoning, human logic, judgment. No, these are all vital for law professionals. So I tell my students, see, technology can assist you, but it cannot and it should not be allowed to rule you. We have to mindfully integrate artificial intelligence in our curriculum and educate the students associated with the perils that are associated with the indiscriminate and also unverified usage of AI. So we have to learn to navigate the complexities. Okay. Further, especially if I'm talking about law students and law professionals, they also need to update themselves with the evolving regulatory landscapes, because breach of data would be a great possibility when we would be using AI. So they would have to additionally update themselves on that front also.
That's true. You talked about safeguards and mental stimulations, and also about the state and policymakers, what they should be doing. A few countries are taking different approaches to AI in education. For example, Sweden, which was once extensively promoted digital learning, is now rolling back its initiatives, whereas India's national strategy for AI has identified education as a key sector for AI-driven transformation. How do you view these contrasting strategies?
See, Sweden has not rejected technology. Okay, but they have realized the perils of hyper-digitalization, because that is what they've done. They had completely discarded their textbooks. And now they have opted for a blended approach, where digital tools can also support education, but we cannot replace the traditional methods totally. Okay. Now, India's new education policy, it emphasizes the integration of artificial intelligence at all levels of education. See, during COVID, had we totally shut ourselves to technology, I mean, where would we be now? So that was the time when we realized the advantages of blended teaching learning approaches in education. So digital literacy, I feel it is a must. You cannot just close yourselves to that.
Uh, no, my question is largely around definitely Sweden has not completely banned it, or but like in school and teaching, and a country like Sweden, which has been doing it for such a long time, and now they are kind of shying away from it or trying to limit it, and we are trying to bring it more to the education. Now, that is my point of view. I see it like why it is so. Dr. Arun, what is your view around it?
So I think that certain countries have reacted early and perhaps gone the other way. And we don't know if it was an experiment in itself. We do not know. Those things will never come out. But ultimately, whatever your starting point is, whether you are a country who has taken, who has shown early reactions and gone to one end, or you're a country where you took time to react, everybody has to tread the balancing line. And that balancing line varies from country to country because the requirements are different. It's not just from a law viewpoint, but also from a context, everything, cultural, social, diversity, everything has to be taken into account. And each country has to find its own balance line. In finding that balance, certainly the educators, the major institutions of that country have to play a big helping hand. They play a big role. And if you zoom down further, it will be the educators of a particular institution and so on. So my general take on going AI is be inclusive. There is absolutely no point in prohibiting. I mean, imagine you're prohibiting somebody from using a calculator today. It will absolutely be meaningless to do that. Okay. Or ask someone not to use a computer. Forget about students. Any store, Kirana store that you take, any shop that you say, don't use computer, right? Then that's it. I mean, you will be kept in the zoo. So that's not the way to go about doing things. I think be inclusive, be aware of the possible perils, but most importantly, be aware of what you want. See, the time has come to clearly define what I want. I'll give you a couple of examples. See, when calculators or computers came about, and I teach a lot of math and science courses, which means there are going to be questions involving computations. Now, imagine that I'm in the pre-computer or the pre-calculator era. What kind of questions I could ask in an exam? That were limited. Obviously, I can't ask for matrix multiplications of very high rank, high order, and so on. No way. 2 by 2 matrices. That's it. I mean, I could do those hand calculations and so on. And a lot of symbolic calculations, perhaps. But when the calculators were allowed, and subsequently when the computers were allowed, there was no point in limiting myself to those the simple questions, simple for that technology. In fact, I would say I had the opportunity now of complexifying my question, appealing to a deeper cognitive layer of the human being, right? So that means these technologies are pushing me and the learners to dig deeper into my cognitive thinking, which is good news. But provided I see it that way, that is important. My perspective is extremely important. So I should see computers or even AI as an enabler for me to push people deeper into thinking. See, I may use ChatGPT. For example, in my courses today, I tell my students, use a technology like Notebook LM, which is very famous. It's a Google's product. I tell them openly. In fact, I demonstrate. Take my slides, see what it can do for you. It can create fantastic podcasts, which I cannot, because it has voices of Deepika Padukone, Shah Rukh Khan. I don't have those voices. So you'll get some very entertaining voices, but technical subject, no film dialogues. You can get review questions. It can generate review questions for you. It can generate sample exam questions for you. My daughter also used it to hone her skills. And I tell all of this and I tell them, don't expect me to give only questions of these types in exams. This is for your preparation. This is a big disclaimer you should notice, and a disclaimer in the largest font size. I am going to now force myself as a teacher to ask open-ended questions, critical thinking questions. So the nature of the questions have changed, right? So the bottom line is realign. Realign and not resign. If you resign, nothing will be achieved. Realignment. In fact, I jokingly say, the pickpocketer has realigned to electronic forgery. Otherwise, he is also obsolete.
That's true.
And likewise, the vendor on the street has realigned to UPI. The guy who has UPI sells more, right? So everybody is realigning. Why an exception for teachers or learners? Everybody has to realign. Each one has to figure out the line. But as a country, certainly the country has to figure out the line. And you can make only some policies at a higher level, but each institution has to take the context and further embellish those and come up. And this is an evolving technology. We will have to really wait for this molten state to solidify. But don't wait until everything is over. Start thinking, right? With mobiles itself, we have not come to steady state yet. But we are still, trying to bring up regulations. Automobile is the only technology where we have some very good regulations. Don't ask me if they're being implemented. Regulations. So it'll take time. I'm very optimistic.
Dr. Arun, you have kind of the next question which I had in mind, you have already answered. And my question was around how can we bridge the gap between the teachers and the students, particularly to effectively integrate AI into education? You have given your views. Professor Vageshwari, can I ask you the same question? What is the simplest way to get into it?
Well, I agree totally with Professor Arun when he said that we need to realign.
Yes.
See, training of trainers is vital for integrating AI in education. Teachers can use it to prepare presentations, assignments. We can compile data for our lectures, and we can save time, which we can later on use for more student-intensive activities. See, undoubtedly, artificial intelligence guarantees faster compilation of information. But there is the risk that the information might be incomplete, or worse, it might be incorrect. So unless it is followed up with a rigorous fact checking, AI generated content can be disastrous for all those who are relying on it. So we'll all have to be particularly mindful of this. We'll have to change our traditional assessment methods. See, we have increasingly been embracing open book exams, assignments, projects, and we'll have to keep developing newer methods of assessments to integrate technology. Exams that were based on rote memorizations, they have to be discarded. We have to develop an evaluation system that tests the practical skills of students, which requires their physical involvement or practical application of their knowledge, which requires them to collaborate with other students, deal with real life cases. We have to ask them to make presentations which would encourage their communication skills. We'll have to ask students to step in and mentor other students who might be having a slow learning capacity. So basically, we'll have to systematically and formally integrate AI into education. Faculty needs to be trained first. This is a work in progress. There would have to be a continuous updation. Understanding and using of AI tools, see, this is going to become a fundamental skill in future. It has to be introduced to students. Change needs to be embraced, but with adequate safeguards in place so that there is no misuse of technology. And in the absence of regulatory framework to deal with perils that are associated with AI, it is extremely important for the teachers and also the parents. See, we have to update ourselves to the latest technology so that we can guide the younger generation. towards using AI in an appropriate and also a positive manner?
I think our discussion is progressing like an AI because the question which comes to my mind, you guys already replied to it. So my next question was, Rajli, and I want you to both answer it in both of you in 2 points, but which could be our last questions also. Like looking ahead, what policies or interventions should India adopt to ensure that AI serves as an empowering tool for students rather than disruptive force in education?
Of course, Professor Vageshwari is a legal expert. I have been looking at things from an education viewpoint. Certainly, we need policies, but I think we need more interventions at the moment. Policies will take time to evolve because as the technology evolves, the policies also have to keep changing. But we'll have to get started with the interventions. And I have a feeling that, I mean, as Professor Vageshwari rightly mentioned, we first need the first intervention that is required is awareness about AI. What are the benefits? What are the things it can do for you? What are the risks associated with it? Awareness has to be brought in, and that has to be brought into every section of the society. It is not just children. It is not about parents. See, I collaborate with an association called Madras Dyslexia Association. We are developing an AI-empowered app as a part of a CSR, project for children with special needs, special learning needs, and so on. And they said, look, we are absolutely illiterate about AI. Can you come and talk about it? Speak. We went and talked about it, and they felt very good about it. It was not kept technical. There is no algorithm and so on. What are the possible things? Talk about use cases, talk about the risks, and what are the experiences of usage of AI in teaching and in research and so on, with whatever experience we've had. When we share, they said, oh, this is great. We understand now what AI can do, and then they have to internalize it for their purpose. But first, level of AI awareness is important. And I think I saw a related question. I heard a related question as well. Should it be taught at the school level? Should it be taught at the higher education level? Yes, my answer is yes. But it has to be at the level at which the kids can understand. If you're teaching to an 8th standard kid, you will have to make it digestible. You cannot go too deep. If it is for an undergrad first year, in fact, at IIT Tirupati, like maybe a few other institutes, we have a mandatory first year AI/machine learning course. Okay? Because it is almost viewed as integral as a math. And I agree with that. So better that and in fact, it's good for the kids as well, because their employment prospects improve once they are trained at the base level. So multiple approaches the governments have to take and maybe bring it in terms of a policy and make it as a mandate that AI awareness has to be at a very important, very minimal but very important level among the sections of the society. Okay. Then the next thing that has to be done is whatever centers of excellence that are being set up, they should be invited to talk about what are the possible use cases and how AI can potentially bring about changes in technology, has the potential to solve problems in burning areas like healthcare, energy, and so on. So that's the next level of awareness, right? And in parallel, institutions have to realign. And there's one point that I always make. When it comes to an education system, it is not the teacher alone or the learner and so on. There are several components that synergize among themselves. So you can't expect a teacher to realign alone and the institute washes off its hands or keeps quiet. No, all of them, including libraries, have to realign. Today's libraries have become sleeping halls during summers, right? Because nice air-conditioned rooms. And I say libraries have to be realigned, and government should also think about having fantastic public libraries, which will bring about awareness and so on, and especially about the privacy and the ethics issue. This is very, very important. I don't care if a person knows how to use AI in a technology, but the person should know how to use it in a responsible way. That is very, very important, right? Otherwise, it can lead to a culture which can be very difficult to fix later on. So we need things along those lines, both in terms of educational policies, legal policies, interventions. So it has to be a multi-pronged approach, is what my feeling is.
Thank you, sir. Professor Vageshwari, he has talked about, I would say, more nitty-gritties of what exactly is needed. What I would request you that, you are a lawyer and you teach law and the new education policy and things which you're well aware of. Can you think at policy level, particularly, what exactly needs to be adapted or corrected or done new?
See, when we talk about artificial intelligence in education, so there what comes to my mind, the threats are lack of complete information, misinformation, data privacy breaches, and some more. So to maintain fairness and integrity, we would have to rule out academic dishonesty. For that, we would have to adhere to artificial intelligence guidelines. We've got those. The NITI Aayog has laid down some. Then there is the DPDP Act. There are certain international standards also, such as OECD, UNESCO, EU's AI Act, which prescribes a blueprint for risk-based approach categorizing AI systems, which are based on potential harm. So technology has to be leveraged for human advantage, but without compromising on the ethics. And we all have to care for data breaches, privacy issues, intellectual property disputes, cyber offenses, and other associated risks. See, nowadays everybody highlights the risk of inherent biases in artificial intelligence algorithms. But you cannot ignore the fact that it is our inputs that have determined the outputs. And over-dependence on AI is going to lead to unfair treatment of the marginalized and vulnerable groups because, as I said, AI, it cannot contextualize things. So ethical education is a must. We need to teach our students the values of perseverance, human worth, integrity. We have to caution them against over-dependence on technology. And at the same time, they have to understand the concerns that are related to data privacy. And another very important concern that I always tell my students is regarding accessibility to artificial intelligence. See, we cannot overlook the rich-poor divide. Not every teacher, not every student has access to technology. See, so those who are the haves, they have significant advantage over the have-nots. So this raises serious ethical concerns regarding equity. So as Professor Arun also said, that we need to synergize human effort with artificial intelligence. And again, I mean, before concluding, I have to again emphasize on the fact that, see, AI cannot be kept away from education. But the need of the hour is to catch them young. See, at the school level itself, I am totally in agreement with our new education policy. Why it is important is because the next generation should be made aware of the dangers that are inherent in unguided and indiscriminate dependence on artificial intelligence. See, we need to tell them what is what so that they grow up normalizing usage of artificial intelligence, but in a conscious and sensible manner. And of course, we as teachers, we have to be exercising extreme caution and be responsible for all this to happen.
Can I just add one quick point?
Ji.
Yeah. In fact, as Professor Vageshwari was speaking, it occurred to me there's one point that needs to be made, which is the need for the next generation to learn by themselves. So self-learning, which is an important aspect of NEP as well. Simply stating that self-learning is important and is the way to go is not sufficient. Universities institutions, teachers have to train the next generation in self-learning. It's not that we don't know how to self-learn. It's not that our generation grew up without self-learning. But there was a lot more guided learning by humans, that we have gone through. But now the onus is being pushed more and more on the learner with the availability of so many resources and with the availability of AI tools that you say, look, all the resources are at your disposal. Now, it is your duty to learn. I give you the slides. I gave you AI tools. You have access to Wikipedia. You have access to open educational resources. You have access to 100 things. Now it's up to you to learn. But if you don't train them in how to learn, because there is a big difference between reading, studying, and learning. And we will have to make them realize. In fact, a simple experiment I tell every teacher is, first 10 minutes of your class, it doesn't have to be every class, show one YouTube video, some very nice video on the topic that you're teaching, and sit with them and watch. Be a part of the learner community. And after the 10 minutes, the snippet, ask a few questions. See if they're able to answer. They will realize that watching is not learning. Okay. So likewise, reading the output of an AI tool is not learning. Self-learning means much more, right? But if we make them aware, for humans, awareness is the most important thing. The rest of the things they will take care by themselves. So if we can make them aware and train them in self-learning, especially the need is high today, then that will go a very long way in what also the last point that Professor Vageshwari made, that then they can make a conscious decision. Everything can be integrated very nicely. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, both of you, Professor Vageshwari and Dr. Arun. This discussion should be useful for teachers, for the students, and for people in policymaking who, if they have a look, they would realize what exactly is needed there. Thank you so much, both of you.
Thank you for the opportunity to express my views.
It was our pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.